What's going on, guys? I don't know who's there yet. Set the flash right away. Rod, can you shut the TV off? Ryan, what is so loud? What is so loud? Okay, you can't do it. I can't. There's no way I should be able to hear it from in here. All right, good, Ryan. I thought you weren't going to be here. Good to see that you are. That's awesome. Give everyone a couple minutes, guys. Let's everyone chill out. Kira, awesome. Great to have you, Kira. See Bobby, Dean, Maddie, C, Bree. Awesome. Bob and Dean, let's make sure we keep it educational. I have no idea what you're writing, but we're not here to be clowns. Let's put down things that we need, not jokes. I'm sure you have your own sites where you could clown around with each other. Ali, Adonis, Ava, awesome. Oh, konnichiwa. Never know what you guys, who's making jokes and who's not. Already up to 10. Very happy. I'm sure Matty Johnson's out there somewhere too. He's normally on he doesn't normally show up on here, but I know he's always watching. So it should be about 11 of us. I don't know what that is. Okay. That I don't need. Okay. Yeah. Guys, good news. We're going to be doing the reading today. I want to discuss some of the classwork and things in the Nearpod today, which I'm glad we got in, even though it was a bit of a debacle getting started. But little things I want to talk about with you guys, and I guess we're going like that. Thank you, Matthew. I knew you were on somewhere. Always check for you there. Okay, good. All right. Number one, you guys got to chill out. You got to be patient. I want you guys listening, so no scroll on the side right now. You have to listen to directions. So many of you just asking the same questions a million times over and over and over again. I'm all about helping you and answering your questions, but I want you to be a little bit more accountable, a little bit more aware of your job. you have a real question, you can ask it. But today's Nearpod, we just couldn't get it together where so many of us were doing our own thing. Okay, so moving forward tomorrow, guys, I want everybody on the side to pay attention to what we're talking about at this moment. Nothing else. Let's try to work on this for this moment so you can understand, so we're clear with each other. We got 19 more Nearpods to go, right? Make sure when you log in, when you go into nearpod.com that you don't log in. It should be saying log in the corner. You don't need to. You just need to type in the student code in the bottom, and I'm going to control it from my portal here. I'm going to sign on up from my iPad and my computer so I can play as well. That's the best way to make things work. Okay, good. Number 2, everybody should be signed up. If you did not sign up yet, that means you're going Tuesday. I can only go with the names that I had. I don't want to pressure anybody. When your Nearpod is done, you let me know and we get it to work, and that's how it operates. So if you don't have a date yet, that means you're going on Tuesday. We might be backlogged now because today we only got 2 out of 5 done. Hopefully we can get more done moving forward tomorrow. They were very good. Kira, very, very happy with you. Ryan, I thought yours was perfect too. Yours was better than mine, Ryan. So really well done. Should be proud of yourself. And you too, Kira. You did a very nice job. And it's not easy. You did a lot of that on your own, and I'm very impressed. Yeah, Dean, I got it. We've already confirmed you're going Tuesday, bud. You're all good. Number 3, classwork. Do not wait for it to get done to the last minute. Hand it in when you can. And guys, for the millionth time, some of these Google documents, when you do them, you hit submit. That's great. But you have to go back into the classwork page. And in the right side, it'll say hand it in or completed. If it doesn't say that, and there's a button that's blue or brown or purple lit up, and it says hand in, click that button. Click it so that it registers that you handed it in. Otherwise, it doesn't. And then I'm searching for it. I don't know where it is. I'm trying to get it to work where as soon as you hit submit, I get it automatically. Some of them have done it, some of them haven't. So it's been strange. Today you had the writing assignment, which was very simple, very easy. We're not answering any specific questions to any individual person right now. I'll answer all questions that you want for yourself at a later time. So ask it on your own on the stream on the classroom. Here, we're just going to give you details of what you need to do. If you have a question, write it down for yourself that you can ask me later. I can't go through everybody's questions right now. It'll take too long. So the bottom line is not everybody's grade, Chapter 8 is graded. I'm starting to grade the classroom assignments as I get them in today, trying to get that on track, and then I'm going to go back. It's been a lot of grading. I've been at my computer, 10 hours, if not more, today, and it will be a lot more tonight. So I don't mind it. I enjoy it. I'm really trying to get the hang of it. And you guys know I'm a perfectionist, so I'm looking forward to making it work. But I need your help. I really do. So let's put some rules in place. On the class, Google Classroom, you're not to have individual conversations with each other because otherwise the stream gets too crowded and I can't find anything that we talked about. And then if I ask a certain question, nobody sees it because there's a nonsense jibber jabber going on. Text each other, talk to each other, and other means of communication, but leave the Google Classroom for stuff for classroom only. And if you have an individual question about an assignment, click on that assignment, and there's a spot for you to write to me about that assignment. So somebody else might have that same question, and that way you're asking it, and it's just directed at the writing assignment or the math assignment. Okay, now I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday. Tomorrow, we did science today. We did social studies yesterday. Tomorrow will be social studies. Monday will be science. We're going to rotate them. Okay, which means I gave you a science project today or science ditto today, you have until Monday actually to hand that in. If you want to get it back already graded like most of you did, hand it in today. Don't wait till the last minute. It has to be done by the next assignment date. So tomorrow, make sure all my social studies is handed in because I'm going to be going over them in the lesson tomorrow before you begin a new one. So it's very important that you get that in and you can get it back. I love that, Adonis. Thank you. Google Classroom. I know, Bob. I'm not Bobby. I just said I'm not going to answer individual ones. Okay. If you have a certain question you want to ask me, write it down on a list and send it to me through the Google Classroom. For the YouTube, we're going to just listen, and I want to make sure you understand. There's no chatter. There's no clowning around when it comes to the classroom time, only because the stream gets too crowded. Otherwise, I'm very impressed, very happy. Some of us had some trouble with the math today, and I'm gonna figure out a way to maybe I might do a quick live stream math lesson with that also. We'll see how that works. Have you guys been watching the videos? I'm looking to see if you answer that question. If you've been using the videos, that's great. You know, it's just a quick thing. It's hard to teach you when I don't know what you're saying, but it's at least something you can always go back, rewind, and look at it. I know I got a couple questions about decimal points today. If you watch the video again, it'll explain it to you. But again, always ask questions when it comes to math, and go from there. The main issue, and there's about 5 or 6 of you that are just not getting it. Once you hand an assignment, go back to that assignment. Make sure on the right side it says handed in. If you click on it, it will go unsubmit or submit, something like that. You have to find it. Okay. Thank you, Julie. I'm glad that they're helpful. That's good. Okay. So, Dean, we'll get working on. You know how you are at the beginning of units. It's not a big deal. You always pick it up when it matters, and we'll get there. Okay. So, it's 11 minutes in already. You know, I feel if I can enjoy and I can talk to you guys for hours. I really could. I love knowing that we're in the same spot and in the same place, and you know, in this crazy world right now that we're living in. You know, you guys are my base. You guys are my foundation. You guys are where I want to be. So I love that we can be with each other like this. So I hope you're enjoying it. Great, Kara. Great. So don't by the way, my cap lock was stuck today, so don't think I was yelling at everybody. I had emailed my mom too, and she's like, why is his caps locked? Ugh, that was an accident. So I wasn't yelling at anybody. If I give you 5 exclamation points, then you know I'm saying you better pay attention and you better focus, because I've said the same thing 30 times. Tomorrow in Nearpods at 1 o'clock, we're going to start off with I think it's Christian or Maddie J. One of those two will go first, and Aaliyah. Those are the 3, and then we're going to see how many we can get after them, depending upon how long the 3 take. If we can get at least 5 done, or if we can get 8 done. I think 8's going to be too many. I'll be bored by then. I think all of us, 5 is the max. Although 2 was great today, but we'll be going forever if we do it 2 at a time. So we got to try to get more than 2 done. Okay. All right. So let's get started with where we were. We were on chapter 5, and we read a lot yesterday, more than I thought we were going to do. My dog ran into my desk, and I lost the book fell, so I'm not exactly sure. Bullet Lincoln still survive. Give me a second, find out where we are. Finding my spawner, I was just a few blocks away. Okay, perfect. Okay. I know where we are. All right, everybody ready to go? I thought you left. Okay. Sorry, that's my daughter still here. Who's that, Landon? You didn't go with Mom? Oh, okay. My daughter's going to start screaming at me any second. Okay, sorry. Okay, hold on 1 second. Give me 1 moment, guys. Give me 1 moment to get this situated. I know where we are now. Lots of messages. Great, great, great. Here we go. That's what I wanted to say. Natalie, if you're watching at home, good to see you. I hope you're doing okay with all your work. I know your teachers miss you. I wanted to make sure I said hello to you. Mom told me that you watched. So I can't wait to see you in Cherokee again. We definitely miss you guys. Miss your smile. All my little sisters out there and brothers that we see during the day, make sure we tell them we said hello to. They are truly the bright spots of Cherokee. Their energy and their love. So make sure you know that you give them a hug from Mr. Kavanaugh today. Thank you, Bob. You make sure you give your sister a hug. Daniel, Maddie J. Brianna, good to you, and Aaliyah, Kira, all you guys, make sure you take care of your little ones. Someone's calling me. Look at this. I'm getting a phone call on my computer. I've never had that happen before. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Now all they had to do was catch John Wilkes Booth, Lewis Powell, John Siront, David Harold, and George Azardot. The doctors probed Lincoln's bullet wound with their bare, dirty fingers, sticking their pinkies inside Lincoln's brain. They used the Nelaton probe to find the bullet for the possible removal, as if that would have helped Lincoln. Eventually, the physicians gave up their tinkering and simply monitored Lincoln's heartbeat, temperature, and breathing. While Lincoln still lived, the manhunt was already underway. At Ford's Theater, the Derringer pistol, the murder weapon, was recovered from the floor of the president's box. Soldiers and detectives rushed to Booth's room at the National Hotel. Of course, Booth was gone, but they searched his trunk and discovered an incredible and mysterious letter to Booth, signed only Sam, that described a large conspiracy against the Union government. Several blocks from the National Hotel, just a few hours after the assassination, a group of detectives showed up at Mary Surratt's boarding house. In the chaos in the streets outside Ford's Theater, one or more sources reported that John Wilkes Booth and John Siront were close friends. Remember, John Siront is Mary Surratt, who owns the boarding house. It's her son. He's out of the country, though. He's not even in the country. But people knew that him and Booth were close buddies. So guess people are gonna think is involved in this? They're gonna think John Siront is gonna be involved in it. So poor John Siront, out of the country and getting accused of murdering the president. Several blocks from the National Hotel, just a few hours after the assassination, a group of detectives showed up at Mary Surratt's boarding house. In the chaos in the streets outside Ford's Theater, one or more sources reported that John Wilkes Booth and John Siront were close friends, and that Mary Surratt's boarding house was just a few blocks away. A boarder and school friend of John Siront, Louis Wetchman, was the first to appear at the door to respond to the patrol's arrival. So when they heard that John Sirant's mother had a boarding house a couple blocks away, they naturally assumed, which I would too, that that's where John Wilkes Booth is hiding out. That's the first place we need to go. Yeah. Yes, Julia, they need proof. Sure, they're trying to get the proof right now. Right now, they're just trying to find John Wilkes Booth and anyone connected to him. So the first person connected to him was John Siront, and his mother had a boarding house 2 blocks away. So that's where the cops are going to go first. We're going to go look at this boarding house first to see if we can find him. So they knock on the door. Louis Weissman, just a guest there, opens the door. The detectives announced their mission. They were there to search the house for John Wilkes Booth and John Siront. Weissman knocked on Mrs. Sirant's bedroom door, telling her that the detectives had come to search the house. She introduced Weissman to let them in. She instructed Weissman to let them in. Weissman seemed not to know why the house was being searched. One detective revealed the shocking and half-false information to the occupants of Sirant's boarding house. John Wilkes Booth had shot the president, and John Siront had assassinated the Secretary of State. John Siront, out of the country, was now being accused of assassinating the Secretary of State. A, he's out of the country. B, Secretary of State's not dead. So all that's false. Yeah, if John Wilkes Booth had been there, they'd all be done. They'd be done. But he's not there. We know he's not there. Weissman told the detectives John Siront was not at home. He's in Canada. And offered to help them with their investigation. Mary Siront claimed not to know where her son was. The detective searched the house, then left, leaving Weissman, Mary, and her daughter, Anna, behind. Throughout the night and into the early morning. Okay, wait, let's just pause there for a second. So they came knocking. Mary Saran was just told her son murdered the Secretary of State. A, he's not dead. B, her son's in Canada. Very strange. Very strange occurrence. Okay, so now it's back to the Pedersen house where Lincoln is about to die. Sorry to ruin the ending for you there at that point, but we know that's going to happen. Throughout the night and into the early morning, Mary Todd Lincoln made regular visits to her husband's bedside. At one point, she wailed, "Oh, that my little Taddy might see his father before he's dead," then fainted, falling to the floor. Edmund Stanton, startled by her cry and fearing that the president had died, rushed into the room and called out loudly, "Take that woman out and do not let her in again." She did not deserve that cruelty. It did not matter. Stanton was obeyed. So remember Edmund Stanton, the guy who's running the government at this point. He hears Mrs. Lincoln scream in agony and pass out and faint and make a huge scene. He comes running in, assuming the president is dead. He finds out he's not dead, that just Mary Todd Lincoln is having basically a breakdown. He's angered by this. He doesn't have much sensitivity, and he kicks her out of the room. He doesn't have time for it. Not good. Insensitive, cruel. But remember, and I'm not making excuses for this guy because I don't think that he had much of a soul other than a war type of guy. He didn't have the time for the drama. He didn't have time for the sympathy. He only had time to deal with what he was dealing with. This is what these army officers did. They dealt with what they had to deal with. They took the emotion out of it. I agree, he shouldn't have been angered, but he's got a lot of things that he's concerned about. He thinks that Washington is under attack, and he doesn't have time for anyone to be screaming. And again, it sounds like I'm justifying it. I agree with you. This poor woman just watched her husband get shot and die and dying. And she can react however she wants. And if she wants to be in the room and crying and whatever she wants, she can do. That's how I feel. But I'm also not controlling the government. I agree, Adonis. He's a coward. Adonis says that he feels Booth is a coward. Yeah, anybody to shoot somebody in the back, that's the definition of a coward. Agreed. Okay. Julia Madonna, always level-headed. Yeah, it's fair. I can understand. Very good. Okay, so kicked her out. Slow pick. Where the heck am I? Okay, here we go. Now we're back to where we're going where Booth and Harold are. Remember, he needs a doctor. He knew where a doctor was that was going to help him. It was 4 hours away. He has the bad ankle, right? That's where we are with him. I'm not an army guy, Julia, but I'm imagining, yes, if you're dealing with war and death and things of that nature, you are taught to deal with the mission at hand and worry about the consequences later. That's how I would think it was at this time or any time. Okay, so after riding half the night on the deserted road south for Sorensville, Booth and David Harold neared their destination, an isolated farmhouse a few miles north of a village called Bryantown. A city-dwelling night rider, unfamiliar with the remote area, Surrey's listening now. Sorry, zip it. Remote area might have missed a turnoff in the dark, but Booth rode confidently ahead, so he knew where he was going. These are important hints the author's giving you. It's pitch black, but he knows where he's going. Like he's been there before. Booth rode confidently ahead. He had been here before. They appeared at a handsome two-story house in the distance. Booth recognized their sanctuary at once. They could rest here. They would not be rushed, and they were at Saran's Tavern, which was much too close, to Washington and possible pursuers. Here, further south, and in the darkness of this remote countryside, they could rest, eat, and sleep. And Booth could get medical care for his injured leg, which he was sure was broken. He needed to renew his strength after being awake for almost 24 hours. He was dog tired, and his weary body ached from 5 bumpy hours on horseback. Okay. I agree. He's been there before. I don't know about a lot, but he's definitely been there before. Very important point there. Okay. So now he's there. He's at the house. The spring night air was still eerie and silent. Booth and Harold approached the farmhouse. No barking dogs warned of their arrival, and the slow pace of the horses' hooves failed to awaken the 6 people sleeping in the house. Harold dismounted and walked to the house, while Booth remained in his saddle. The assassin was alert for signs of sounds of danger. No lamplight shone through the window into the front yard. David would have to wake the people inside. He knocked on the door and waited for signs of life within the house. The loud rapping awoke the farmer, who was alarmed at being awakened in the middle of the night. The farmer rose from his bed, walked to the front door, and called, "Who's there?" to the person on the other side. 2 strangers replied, David Harold on the way to Washington. One of their horses had fallen. He claimed throwing the rider and breaking his leg. Hesitating, the farmer peered through a window, then unlocked the door. In his front yard, he saw the 2 men, about 20 feet away, standing under a cedar tree. He approached them. Booth relaxed at the sight of a familiar face. The farmer helped Booth dismount, offering support when the fugitive's body weight bore down on his injured leg. Booth grimaced in pain when his feet touched the ground. He staggered into the arms of Dr. Samuel A. Mudd. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. We know Booth knows the guy. Booth knows his face. The story now is going to be told as if Mudd doesn't know who this is. This is where the story is going to go. They're telling us that Booth knows the face, knew the house, but Dr. Samuel Mudd is going to tell his side of the story like he's never seen Booth before, ever, that he didn't know it was him. Why would he do that? How is that story getting out? The very simple solution that I have is he knows that Booth's up to no good. He knows something bad happened, and he's going to pretend to no end that he doesn't know who it is because he doesn't want to have any blood on his hands. You understand? So let's find out. And by the way, there's an old expression. It's something that goes, "Your name is Mudd." It's a big insult, and it's actually directed at Samuel Mudd. People thought he was, because he was a liar and a coward. Again, this is not proven. This is just what people thought, because nobody really knows other than Booth and Mudd. But "Your name is Mudd" is from Samuel Mudd. So anyway, back to the facts. Okay, now watch this now. That's right, Julia. Oh, I get in trouble. Their faces only inches apart. Mudd helped Booth limp up the steps and into his home. Harold tended to the horses, then followed. Booth and Dr. Mudd inside the farmhouse. Then followed Booth and Dr. Mudd into the farmhouse. So there they are. Want to see Dr. Mudd? There he is. And by the way, this guy's 10 years younger than me in this picture. Is that crazy? Maybe I'll grow my beard long like that. What do you think? Maybe the next time you see me, I got a beard like that. Me and Dr. Mudd. Okay, anyway. His name is actually Mudd. His name is Mudd. That's accurate. Okay, so here's interesting right now. Pay attention here. Harold was a stranger to Mudd. So David Harold didn't know Mudd. That's been proven. The doctor had never laid eyes on him before, but Booth was not. The chain of events that led John Wilkes Booth to Mudd's farm in the pre-dawn hours of April 15th, 1865, began 6 months earlier in Montreal, Canada. By late 1864, Booth had hatched the risky plan to kidnap President Lincoln. He attempted to recruit accomplices in New York City, a place where there were many Lincoln haters and Confederate sympathizers. Booth knew the city well, of course. He had acted there many times. North of New York, Canada was a major base of operations for the Confederate Secret Service. In Montreal, nests of rebel agents with plans and money were busy hatching anti-Union conspiracies. Booth sought contacts there, and his little band of conspirators would snatch Lincoln and transport him out of Washington south to Richmond. He needed no less than a rebel version of the Underground Railroad that transported runaway slaves north to freedom. Booth's railroad, however, would run in reverse. We talked about this on his way home. He needed a reverse railroad. He would take the tyrant, Lincoln, who had freed the slaves, south to the Confederate capital of Richmond. He would trade Lincoln for Confederate prisoners of war or attempt to use his captive as leverage to give the South an advantage in peace negotiations. To pull off his plan, he needed loyal Confederate agents and safe houses located at points along the route. Okay, just so you're not getting lost. This is that we're going back in time 6 months to when Booth had another plan that didn't work out. His plan was to kidnap the president. Remember that didn't work? Well, he upgraded to killing the president, but when he was making this plan to kidnap the president, he had to find different houses along the way. And to do that, he needed to know who was against Lincoln to do this. So he did a lot of searching, and he did a lot of investigating of where he was going to go. So where was it? Trains, points along the route. Once one operative he met in Canada gave Booth letters. These pages stink. Of introduction, vouching for the actor's devotion to the Confederacy and requesting aid for him. One of the letters was addressed to Samuel A. Mudd. Mudd, 32 years old. 32 years old, that man was a doctor living on a farm with his wife and family. He was anti-union, anti-black people, and the owner of up to 11 slaves before Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had freed them. By November 9th, 1864, Booth had visited the Bryantown Tavern in Southern Maryland, a combination saloon, inn, and post office, not unlike Saran's Tavern. It was known among Confederate sympathizers as a reliable safe house and place to exchange information. A few days later at church, Booth was introduced to Dr. Mudd. Now, you might say, how do we know this happened? Because eventually, people saw them. Oh, John Wilkes Booth was famous. Oh, yeah, I saw John Wilkes Booth with Dr. Mudd. They were met at church. I was there when they met. People lived and they saw it. They couldn't hide. John Wilkes Booth was famous. So if you were with it, if you were just with Mr. Kavanaugh, they wouldn't remember, because who am I? But John Wilkes Booth was famous. So you can't hide the fact that Samuel Mudd knew him, even though he tries to. And again, if you're famous, if I put on a fake mustache and glasses, I'm still Mr. Kavanaugh. You guys know me. I can't fool you. I'd have to get face makeup and something to make it believable if we're going to be in the same house that you don't know it's me. Dr. Samuel Mudd is going to say, listen, I had no idea that was John Wilkes Booth. Liar. It's my opinion. I apologize, but that's what I feel. Okay, so back 6 months later. In Maryland, a month later, Booth again encountered Mudd at church. Booth invented a cover story. He claimed to be looking for real estate and a horse to buy. Booth needed horses for the kidnapping gang he hoped to put together. Samuel Mudd was happy to help. After church, Booth rode home with the doctor and spent the night at his farm. Mudd introduced Booth to a neighbor who sold Booth a peculiar one-eyed horse. That's the same one-eyed horse that Lewis Powell had and somehow lost, and he ends up winding up sleeping in a tree. I digress. Dr. Mudd had been helpful to Booth in Maryland, but the actor also needed the doctor's help, an introduction in Washington. Mudd went to Washington to introduce Booth to a Confederate courier named John Harrison Sarant. Sarant operated out of his mother's boarding house. See how everything's connecting now? Everything's connecting. On H Street and from Huck Country Tavern in Sarantsville, Booth would require that type of help Sarant could provide along his escape south. So let's sum it up. 6 months earlier, Booth knew that he wanted to kidnap Lincoln to help the South. Somehow, in his own weird mind, he thought it could help them win the war or get better negotiations for peace treaty. That's what he was hoping for. So he made all these connections. One of them was Mudd. Then he said, listen, I'm going to need somebody in New York. So Mudd introduced him to Sarant. So now it's all connected to these names here. So now the government is going to eventually find out all of these names. Everybody should go to jail right now. How about Johnny Peanuts, that poor guy? Poor Johnny Peanuts. He looks like he's involved because he was holding the horse's reins. Okay. Adonis, that's the question for the ages. How did this clown lose the horse? It makes no sense. He might have said, listen, let me get rid of the horse because they'll be looking for somebody on a horse, and then we can forgive that. That's part of an escape plan. Part of his plan was sleeping in a tree for 2 days, too. Not the best thing. Yes, because they're accomplices. You don't even realize you're involved, and you're guilt by association. Wrong place at the wrong time. I'm sure you've heard of that before. That's poor Johnny Peanuts. I laugh, but very sad for him. I'll talk about him a little bit later in the book. On the way to the H Street boarding house, Booth and Mudd encountered John Sarant on the street, and then the introduction took place. Booth invited everyone. Mudd, Sarant, Lewis Welchman, the guy who opened the door, friend of Sarant, and a boarder at the H House, back to his room at the National Hotel for drinks and a private conversation. Booth recruited Sarant into the conspiracy to kidnap the president and soon became a frequent visitor to the boarding house where he befriended Sarant's widowed mother and his younger sister, Anna. His work done, Mudd returned just before Christmas 1864 to his farm and waited for further word from Booth about the kidnapping. No word ever came. Lincoln's second inaugurations came and went in March. Richmond fell on April 3rd. Lee surrendered on April 9th. But Dr. Mudd saw no more of Booth. Booth had sent liquor and supplies to Mudd's farm for hiding until the day came for Booth and his kidnapping victim to flee the city. But he never did. Given the disastrous events of April 1865, Mudd assumed that the Union victory had changed the actors' plans and the scheme to kidnap the president had been abandoned. Now, we know that's not the truth. It just failed. They wanted to kidnap him. They had the plan. They went out to do it. They just had the wrong information. So they had planned to use Dr. Mudd's farm to hold the president there until they can transfer him to Richmond. It just never happened. It wasn't like that Booth could have called Mudd on the cell phone and said, hey, yo, listen, it didn't work out. We're not coming. They just didn't contact each other. So Mudd assumed that nothing ever happened, and he never thought about it again. You understand? Okay. Now, 4 months later, Booth was here at the farm again. Though the doctor, standing in the darkness of his front yard, did not know it yet. He don't know. Dr. Samuel Mudd doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know that Lincoln's been killed. That we know for sure. No one's told him that. Once inside, Booth sat on the sofa in the front parlor, then reclined. Mudd lit an oil lamp and dialed up the flame to permit a proper examination of his new patient. Their eyes locked in recognition. You know, when you look at somebody like, yeah, I know who you are, but no one's saying anything. In an instant, the doctor knew the identity of the man who was lying in front of him. How could he fail to recognize the actor's familiar, thick black hair, pale complexion, trademark mustache, and striking good looks? Nobody knows the news. Remember, they're ahead of the news. Here's Booth. Here's the news. It hasn't gotten to them yet. They're ahead of the news. The first step in the examination process would be to pry the thigh-high cavalry boot off Booth's left leg. Mudd stood at one end of the sofa, took firm grip of the heel and sole, and tugged. Booth's jaw clamped tight in pain. The boot would not budge. The injury to Booth's leg had caused the tissue to swell up and create a seal that could not be broken without inflicting agony upon the patient and possibly worsening the injury. Mudd made a cut of the boot near the ankle, carefully not to cut too deeply, and opened Booth's soft flesh. Mudd seized the boot firmly and pulled slowly. This time it slipped off. He dropped the boot to the floor, removed Booth's sock, pushed his pant leg up his calf, and began the examination. Trademark means that's what he's known for. Mr. Kavanaugh's trademark is his red face, because that's what I'm known for. 10 years from now, you say, oh, you had Mr. Kavanaugh? Yeah, Mr. Kavanaugh. Didn't he have a red face? Yeah, oh, you sure? Yeah, he had a red face. It means that's what you're known for. I'm sure I'm known for other things too. The diagnosis was simple. A broken fibula. It's a broken bone in his ankle. Mudd informed Booth that he had a broken bone about 2 inches above the ankle joint. The doctor did not regard it as particularly dangerous or painful, reassuring Booth that he could treat the injury. He improvised a splint for Booth. It was now about 5:00 a.m. Booth knew he should press on south. He knew he was still traveling ahead of the news of the assassination. Remember, though, the news is never going to stop. He's stopped right now getting examined. So what's catching up to him? The news. And when it catches him, we're not talking 5 people looking for him. You're talking the whole government is looking for him. So he's got to stay ahead of that news. So you cannot take that long of a break. You have to get going. He has to go to Richmond. He knew he was still traveling ahead of the news of the assassination, which Mudd was not yet aware of. He knew that the news would spread and overtake him, making the daylight hours unsafe for traveling. Booth weighed the risk of capture against his desire for food and rest. No one in the world knew he had gone to Mudd's tonight. He had not known he would go there himself until after he shot Lincoln and injured his leg. Better to hide out and chance discovery than get caught up in the open country at sunrise. He and Harold would spend what few hours remained of this night at the farm, rest there all day, and then ride south at nightfall. Have you ever been so tired? Maybe you had schoolwork that you had to do. Maybe you had to clean your room and you had these great thoughts you want to do, but your body was so tired, it didn't matter. You needed sleep. That's where he is right now. He's got the whole country chasing him, but he knows he has to sleep. So his plan is very simple. I'm going to sleep, and we're going to sleep the whole day. We're not going to go out during the day. We're going to wait till the next nightfall on a full night rest and then leave at night. So he spent like about 15 hours sleeping, resting, eating, regrouping, and then leaving at nightfall because nobody knows he's at Mudd's farm yet. That connection has not been made by the government. So that's where he is with that right now. So he's going to rest. Mudd invited the pair to rest in his house for the night. He offered them a room upstairs and then said goodnight. Unknown to Mudd, he had just extended his hospitality to Lincoln's assassin and his accomplice. What we're saying is, the book is saying that Mudd knew who he was, but B, he didn't know that Lincoln had killed Lincoln. That he didn't know that Booth had killed Lincoln. That's what he's saying. I might have known who he was, but I didn't know he killed Lincoln. No one told me he killed Lincoln. That was never the plan to kill Lincoln. Even if I was involved in a kidnapping, I never would have agreed to a killing, and I didn't know about it. So you understand right now what we're saying? That's what Mud would always say. I didn't know. I didn't know. I would have never agreed to that. What do you think? I don't know. I don't know. Their secrets still safe from Mud and his family, and their location a mystery to the manhunters. Harold and Booth collapsed into their beds. As Booth drifted off to sleep, he did not know whether his master plan had succeeded or failed. Had George Azardot and Lewis Powell carried out their missions and murdered Vice President Johnson and Secretary Seward? And what of the president? Had Booth killed Abraham Lincoln, or did the tyrant still live? Booth did not know he would be damned in the morning newspapers as the most wanted man in America. While Booth and Harold slept at the Mud farmhouse, the 1st Cavalry Patrol rode south from Washington, headed for Maryland. Soon, this group from the 13th New York Cavalry, commanded by Lieutenant David Dana, would ride close to Mud's farm. Booth had about a 7-hour lead. And that's where we end today. So, the cavalry's coming. The cavalry is headed to Washington, to Maryland. That's where Mud's farm is. 7 hours, which is he going to lose in his sleep. That's going to be gone. But remember, Maryland's a big place. They don't know that Booth's at Mud's farm. They're just tracking, and they're going to just scour the area. They're going to ask questions. Have you seen? Have you seen? Connect the dots, connect the dots, connect the dots. We're only 7 hours into the after the assassination. Booth doesn't know if his plan worked or not. We don't know where Lewis Powell is. We don't know where George Azardot is. Poor John Sarant. I don't want to say poor John Sarant, but let's be honest. He didn't have a plan in this. Is in Canada being accused of killing people. Edmund Stanton yelling at Mary Todd Lincoln, throwing her out of the room. A lot of chaos is going on. A lot of craziness going on. Tomorrow's chapter is going to be awesome. I have to say, you guys are going to hate that the weekend is here because you're going to be so dying to read. It's an incredible book. What's even more crazy is that it's true. Okay, so that's it for today. I want to read more too. I'm like very tempted, but my family wants to eat dinner. You know, they've been listening on the couch over here. And then we got to go see my mother. At least we're going to do a drive-by my mom, say hello. We're looking to actually plan something like that for you guys too. Drive by, maybe like a Cherokee parade or something like that. Not sure of the final details yet. We're working some things out. But just to see you guys will be awesome. Can we read on the weekend? We can't. Maybe Julia Madonna. I'm thinking that might be where we're headed. We might just do a live stream of just us chit-chatting. It's not a bad idea. The greatest thing in the world to me is you guys wanting us to read more. It means you're into it. Like you always are. Every book we've read this year, from Ringer to Tuck Everlasting to my favorite, Esperanza Rising, your response to the literature has been tremendous to me, and it's what makes school so great when you can engage each other in great literature, and it's awesome. I'm hoping you guys can find the love of books like that and find a book that really captivates you and makes it interesting. All right, we're almost at 50 minutes, almost an hour we spent together tonight, which is awesome. Again, it's the highlight of my day. This is what I'm going to ask you. Let's repeat. The stream on the classroom, keep it school related. Try to ask more than one question at one time. And if it's a question about an assignment, ask it on that assignment's page so the regular information doesn't get lost. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Adios.